Guys, how you doing? Welcome to American Defender. Today we're going to talk about this guy right here. This is the GT32 made by Armi Tangfoglio Giuseppe. Okay, that's actually what they call it. It's the Armi Tangfoglio Giuseppe. That's what they call it in Italy. It's made in Cardone, VT, Italy. I don't know if VT, Vermont is VT to me, but I don't think they have a Cardone, Vermont, Italy in there. Cardone VT. If somebody knows what the VT stands for, please let me know. I would like to know. But it's made in Italy. This is basically a knockoff Beretta 83. They had been making these. Started making these little guns in 1966, and they were chambered in either 32 ACP or 380 ACP. This one's in 32. I chose 32 because I've never had a 32. We're going to talk about 32 a little bit, okay? It's a single stack, single action only, so just like a 1911, direct blowback pistol. And it is a joy to shoot. It is extremely reliable. It is extremely fun to shoot. It's not very terribly expensive to shoot. It's actually cheaper than 25 ACP. It is considered to be one of the mouse guns, which I don't think it really deserves, but it is a smaller cartridge. If you guys know anything about the 32 ACP, it was invented in 1899 by John Moses Browning for the model 1900. I think FN made that. And then it was also in the Colt 1903, I think it was, or Colt 1906 or 1908, were all chambered in 32 ACP. There's a lot of other spin-off guns, too. The European countries love 32. Love it. Still use it to this day. But over here in America, for whatever damn reason, we just think 32 is too damn weak. And that's the wrong way to think about it. There's actually research that proves that. This gun does have a last round lock open feature. Okay. There is a difference in magazines. I happen to have two. This one is marked 32 caliber. This one is marked 32 caliber. This one, let's take a look at the differences. Okay, so this one's an 8-round magazine. It's got that big old spur. This one's a 7-round magazine. Does not have big spur. Here's something else I noticed. Remember I mentioned these were in 380? You get in the 380? Well, the one without the spur, without the big spur, watch this. This is a 9mm. It's not a 380, but I forgot to bring my 380 out here. But as you can clearly see, it goes right in. 380 will fit in this magazine. In this magazine, you probably have to adjust your feed lips. It looks like it wants to go in, but it really gets sticky after that. So you could, or what I'm trying to get at is there's a possibility you could convert one of these 32s to 380, and you might not have to buy a magazine. You're going to want to buy a magazine, but you might not have to. You are going to have to buy a barrel. You are going to have to buy an extractor, most likely, and another recoil spring. But that's it. Okay? That's all you got to do. Everything else will work. You go to 380. And they were chambered in 380, so it's not like some special conversion that you're going to have to do. And really, the difference between 0.325 and 0.355 of the 380 is not that much of a difference anyway. There's only like a 20 grain difference in the rounds, which is minute. It's just very minute. Okay, very minute. It's not enough to matter. You could get a 20 grain difference in the same caliber. So that's a bonus with this gun. Okay, so and you can take this thing apart really easily. Take this thing apart. I'm jumping ahead of myself here, but take this thing apart. All you got to do is run this safety forward, and then I'll show you here. I want to go over the safeties before I get into that, really. Okay, so this thing's got a ton of safeties going on here, and it has to because it's subject to the NFA Act of 1968, and the way they would import these here. This was a 1981. It's got the AH stamp. Italy always stamps the date codes on their guns. And everything 1977 and newer has letters before 1990 or before 1977, it had Roman numerals, and you can get all that stuff online and figure it all out on there. But this one's an AH, and in 1977 it started at AA. The 78 would be AB, 79 would be AC, and then you had 80, which would be AD, and then for whatever reason, they skipped and went to AH for 81, according to what I saw online. So, 81. I know AH is 81, though. That's what I can tell you. It might have been 74 or 75 when they went to it. But I know it was mid to late 70s. The Italians switched their date code system. Dovetail sight in the rear, has a machine sight on the front, and it's got a ton of safeties. That's what we're supposed to be talking about. Trigger safety, right here. Okay, so that's safe. That's fire. Hammer safety, down is safe. And up is fire. Has a magwell safety. You guys know I hate magwell safety. So on this gun, I'm fine with it. It doesn't bother me one lick. Because this magazine, you're not going to get in a rush and push a button and have it drop out. Magazines are not drop free, and it has a European release. So even if you bump it, it's not going to come out. Okay. It might pop out a little bit like that, but that's it. That's what you're going to get. It's just a simple pop-up like that, and you're back in business. That is, though, however, I think enough. Let's see. Nope, not enough to where it won't fire. So, that's good. That's good. I'm not worried about that magwell safety. You can disable the magwell safety by removing a pin in the frame. But I'm not going to show you how to do that, and I don't suggest that you do. The grips are checkered, really nice. Has a nice thumb shelf on the side right there. Take it apart real quick. Take the thumb safety for the trigger, push it forward. Well, you don't have to remove the magazine for this either. Just pull the slide back once you push that forward. I've just put the hammer back because it makes it easier. Pull back, lift up. And that is it. This safety will now, the trigger safety, once you do this, will come out. Guide rod out. It will literally just drop right out. There's your stripped gun. Now notice that this is really cool. It's got kind of a squared off barrel. Now your slide does come in contact, as you can see there, with the bottom of the barrel. It does ride on that. Right there on that flat spot inside the slide. So keep that polished and lubed. These guns have to be lubed and cleaned. You have to do it. Okay, and a lot of people didn't do that. And so after about 40 rounds, they started getting stovepipe issues. And it's got nothing to do with the reliability of the gun. It's got to do with the fact that the people that own these things weren't taking care of the gun. Now, when you're putting this back together, if you're a lefty, or if you just feel like doing it, you can put the trigger safety to the other side, okay? And it maintains its same function and in the same directions, except for in fire, it won't come all the way back. It'll sit back like that, okay? But it still does work, so you can do that. Put it back together. Oh, let's talk about how this is held together, because this is really neat. It relies on the guide rod, and it relies on this piece, this little lever. And so we've got this little cam. All right, so what you've got is you've got a deep groove cut on one side and a shallow groove cut on the other side. And you've got this plunger on the back of your guide rod, okay? This right here is safe. As you can see, what it does is it falls into that deeper notch. Whereas in fire, it sits on a shallower notch. What this is doing is lengthening and shortening the guide rod. And by doing that, it's limiting the travel that the slide can move, so that it can't get all the way back and come up off the rails. That's how it works. I'll kind of do a demonstration here to show you how this works, okay? So let me put this in fire, okay? In fire. Okay, I'm going to go into safe. Now, watch the guide rod. See it shrink? Came forward. Fell down. Came out. Came down. Goes out, comes down. So yeah, that's how that works. And all it's doing is limiting the travel of the slide. That's it. That's how it works. Also, when you're putting these together, there's a video out there I watched, and the guy's like, he says that this end goes down like this. Wrong. This end, I'm going to show you why he's wrong. This end, this spring has to go inside the guide rod right there to get the correct length. And as you can see here, it won't even go in. You have to put it in like that. Okay? Because it's got that flare on the end. That flare actually centers this onto the inside diameter right there on the slide. It centers it. So, and supports it from that end. So that's how you do it. Put this back together, you kind of hold it up at an angle and just pull. You want to keep that in safe. And then let it slide forward, and that's it. That's all there is to it. Okay, super incredibly easy to take apart. Great to shoot. Again, a lot of people reporting about 40 rounds and all of a sudden start stovepiping, and then they clean it and then it goes away. Well, it's not so much that it's dirty, it's that it uses lube like crazy. It uses a lot of lube. And what happens is after 40 rounds of this thing, that barrel and that slide start to get hot, and they start to swell up, and you start to get interference. It's no longer smooth. It's no longer running smooth. It's like they're grabbing each other, and it's slowing the slide down. Because remember, it's direct blowback. If you watched my crash course on direct blowback, you'll see that's exactly what it is. So that little flat spot, like I told you, keep that lube, keep the bottom of the barrel, that flat spot lube. If you can, I would grease it. Honestly, I just put grease on it or motor oil. That's what I did on mine, is motor oil. And you'll even feel the difference between it with grease and without grease. You'll feel that it just drags and is really rough. And then you put the grease or the lube on there, and all of a sudden, yeah, it works real nice. Gee, I wonder why it's stovepiping and malfunctioning. You're slowing down the timing of the gun, maybe? Yeah, so they're not bad guns. Again, they're of the same quality as like a Walther PPK. But you just got to keep them lubed. It's common sense. It's not the error of the manufacturer of the gun. This is error of the user. When you hear these, there's really only one or two videos out there where the person reports that, but it has been reported, and it is true. If you don't keep it lubed, it'll go 30, 40 rounds, and all of a sudden start stovepiping. And then you take it apart, and by taking it apart, you start cleaning it, you're adding a little lubricant in places, and then you're allowing it to cool. You've got to keep it lubed. Okay, it's got to be wet. Okay, that's why I say use grease, but it's got to be wet. A thin grease, not real thick grease, a thin grease, nice gun grease, or like a 1030 motor oil. That's what I use. Once you get that shooting this, I went through 2 boxes on this thing with no problem. Just right on through. As long as I kept it wet. It needs to be lubed. So let's talk a little bit about 32 ACP. 32 ACP, again, invented 1899 for the Browning 1900, or the FN Herstal 1900. And then again was adopted by pretty much every police force there was in the world, including United States police forces. They did use it for a while, and then they switched and went back over to the 38 Special. Yeah, I think it was clear up in, I think even today, yeah, they're still using them. I think, let's see here, the Czechs went to 9, Yugos went to 9, but I do believe there are some police forces still using 7.65 Browning. Even today, I think Romanians are still in certain departments using it. But it's a cartridge that's well over 100 years old. well over 100 years old. It's 120 years old. It's still viable. Everything Browning touched and made is still viable over 100 years later. Okay, if it's got ACP after the name of the cartridge, it's probably viable, with the exception of 25. But even then, 25 is still, to some people, preferred over 22. Some people, not all. I'm one of those people that's not all. I prefer the 22, just based off of economics. But if I'm going to go center fire and I want a little gun and I want a little cartridge, 32. 32 versus 380. Up close, the 380 has a little bit more power. Not really as much as you would think. When you get out 20 yards, 30 yards, they're identical in feet per second and damage done. So they're very similar. They're very, very similar. As a matter of fact, I'm trying to remember the guy's Epstein. I can't remember the guy's name, but he did a 13-year study on effective pistol calibers. And he studied 22, 25, 32, 389, 40, 45, all kinds. And what he found in his research is that the round that had the most one-stop shots was the 32 ACP. Not 9, not 45, not 40. Nothing else. 32. And it wasn't just by a little bit. It was by a margin of 25% more of the time that had one-shot stops in an attack. And he used police reports as evidence of this. He used medical records. He used records from battlefields and wars and military events and battles. And 32 came out as the king of the crop. But then he goes and he contradicts his entire bit of research and says that he wouldn't carry anything below a 380, which is really, really contradicting what he's saying. And I think what he's doing is he's putting a little bit of his own personal bias in there and just wrapping some pseudoscience around it. 32 is very viable for self-defense. It has a lot of advantages over the larger cartridges like 380 and 9. One of the most obvious is recoil. It doesn't have the same amount of recoil as a 9. A 9mm can be pretty snappy, especially in today's guns. Like the PF9 and this are the same size. Okay, my PF9 is like a damn jackhammer in your hand. It boom, it's got some recoil to it. This is a heavier gun with a smaller cartridge. This weighs 25 ounces, and it's loaded. And this is smooth shooting. Very, if any, recoil. Matter of fact, my P30 Grendel 22 Magnum has more recoil than this thing does. So you're on target. You're putting the bullets where they gotta go on the target. Capacity. This is the same argument 9mm guys use against the 40 and 45 guys. Well, guess what? We can now use it on you. Those of us that like the 32, we can hold more rounds than a 9mm. Way more rounds. And more rounds on target is better. What else can I tell you about it? Ammo. Okay, up until recently, the ammo that we've seen for 32 ACP, I will admit, has been kind of anemic, usually charged with about 1.5 grains of powder behind a 71 or 73 grain bullet. And you're usually getting velocities of about 850 feet per second, as low as some of them 770 feet per second. Again, they're measuring this, though, out of an itty-bitty little barrel. This is a 3 3/4 inch barrel, almost 4-inch barrel. So you'll have a little more velocity coming out of this than you will your standard 32, like your little Beretta Tomcat with its little tiny 2 3/4 or 3-inch barrel. You've got a little longer barrel on this thing. So it's going to give you a little bit more of an edge. A long time ago we did a test on a 32. A buddy of mine had a 32 Keltec P3AT, and he had the P32, and I had the P3AT. and we did a test on it. And up close, yes, 380 had a little bit more punch, about 100, 125 feet per second more, using Remington ammunition. We were using the UMC stuff. And once we got it out again, like 25 yards, we noticed that they were both running at about 725 feet per second. So when you get out to distance, 32 and 380 are pretty much damn near identical as far as feet per second goes. Now, if you transfer that into ballistic energy, you do have 20 more grains coming out of a 90 or 93 grain projectile on a 380. But is that 20 grains enough to really matter? No. No, it's not. Not really. So up close is where 380 has the power over the 32. It's up close, 7 yards or less. When you move outside of that, they start to become equal. And there's actually a point in time where 32, for a brief moment in time, jumps ahead of the 380 because it's a lighter round. Also, today's manufacturers are undercharging the 32 of what it's capable of. They're undercharging it a little bit. You can usually get another half grain, a little under half a grain into a 32 and really make them sing. Okay, granted, you are getting into plus P territory at that point in time, but you could really make them zing out there. Underwood has come out with their new 32 ACP offering. And with Underwood's offering, I think it's called the Extreme Cavitator. I think. It actually takes 32 ACP and puts it right there alongside 380. So is 32 really, is it a dead cartridge? No, long from it. It never will be. There are far too many firearms chambered in it, for one. Two, people still carry it. Over 100 years later, people are still carrying it. They're still being sold in the gun shops. So the ammo manufacturers are still making them. Lucky Gunner's video, he actually mentions in there what he finds is that those people that are shooting 380 really aren't shooting as often as the people that are shooting 32. Folks that are shooting their 32 are getting out and they're actually putting lead on range and doing their practice because 32 ACP is a lot cheaper than 380. Yesterday, I bought from the local gun shop, I bought Cellar and Bellet, or that's actually Cellier and Belot, if you want to get all French with it. Anyway, I bought a brand new box of that for $10. This is 2019 prices, $10. So it wasn't that much more expensive than 9mm. It was right on par with 9mm and even 40 cal. So, whereas 380 was $22.99 a box. If you go to Walmart, 380 is pretty dadgum expensive. 380 used to be the same price as 9mm, but then all of a sudden all these mouse guns started popping up and people, oh, we got to use 380. And look what you did. You drove the price of it up. And I think a lot of folks do this on purpose, just so the ammo manufacturers can, charge more, and then they get a little chunk of it. I honestly think that. Just like the guy that did the thing that did the 13-year-long research, I'm kind of wondering what kind of a kickback he got for saying, but I wouldn't use anything smaller than a 380, and preferably a 9. I kind of wonder if he got a kickback from that. You got to think about that kind of stuff. Especially in this day and age, where on YouTube and when people have websites, they're basically advertisers. Okay, there's not very many YouTubers out there, big ones like myself, that just want to give you information for free. I'm not out to make a buck. They're out to make a buck. That's what they're there to do. I'm not out to make a buck. I'm out to save your life. I'm out to educate you. That's what I'm out to do. I'm not here to make a buck. So you got to think about that. What did he get by saying that? Did he get anything? Did they get anything? He or she? You got to think about that. So, anybody ever looks at you and says 32 is not viable, all you got to do is say, well, can I shoot you with it? And they go, no. They go, well, I guess it's viable then, huh? Uh, and I got to mention this real quick. The FBI testing, again, Underwood has their offering that does go within that 12 to 18 inch mark. Guys, that's hogwash. That whole 12 to 18 inch thing, that's hogwash. Do you know what that standard is set up for? It's in case you've got to engage a target from this position, from the sideways position like this. This is what that's the 12 to 18 inches right there. Okay. That's less than 5% of the time that you run into that. As a civilian, you probably won't run into that. What you will run into is this. 85%, 90% of the time. This is what you're going to run into. If they have any kind of training at all, this is what you're going to run into. If it's just your usual crook, you'll see this, or, yo, put the money in the bag. Money in the bag. This is a very popular position right here. Now look what's open on me. You saw how thick I am, and I'm a big dude, okay? If you shoot 15 inches on me, what's going to happen? It's going to completely and utterly over-penetrate. And probably go into the person behind me. You don't want that. Because remember, wherever that bullet goes, you're responsible for it. Remember that. If you happen to get somebody that is educated doing this number right here, okay, what do you got to shoot through? Their arm. Your arm. I have bigger arms than most people, but you know, might be right here. About so thick. Yeah, it's about 4 inches, 3 3/4, 4 inches thick right there. You got to go through that. So there's 4 inches. Then it's just dead space, and then to get to the vital organs, you only got to go 2 inches under the skin to get to a vital organ, on average, 2 to 2.5. So if you've got a total of, say, 10 inches of penetration, that's plenty. 9 inches is plenty. You don't want the bullet to exit. You want it to go in, do its job, stop. Okay, if it just stops coming right outside the rib cage or whatever, it stopped. That's all that matters. Hallelujah. The threat has stopped, and nobody else got hurt, and the bullet didn't leave them. That's perfect. That's truly perfect. I think a lot of people get too involved and too brainwashed by this whole prepper mentality or this defensive attitude, and I think a lot of these supposed trainers play on people that are developing a paranoia about self-defense. There's a difference between caution and paranoia. There's a lot of people out there in the training industry of firearms that prey on paranoid people. They do that. And if you just step back for a second and look at the truth and the reality, you'll see I'm right. They prey on that. I'm not going to mention names. There are YouTubers on here that are defensive professionals that have large followings that do this exact same thing. Chuck Jagger. Jagger Marshall. Okay, so there are folks out there that do that. Don't be paranoid. Keep your mind cool and calm, aware and alert. Carry a gun. Whatever you can put rounds on target with is what you carry. Whatever you're comfortable carrying, whatever you can do the job with, that's what you carry. You don't worry about, is it pretty? Is it the best thing on the market? You don't worry about that. Is it the best thing in your hands for you? Common sense. Okay? Down to earth. That's where you got to be. That I'm out of here, guys. 32 ACP absolutely is a viable option for self-defense. Don't believe all of the crap you say. Don't feed into the paranoia machine. And I am out of here. Take a kid fishing, take a kid shooting. God bless you. Like, rate, subscribe, share, and we'll see y'all on the flip. Bye now.